Who wants to abolish the IRS? So far, 58 House Republicans.
Really?
Yep.
Interesting.
Abolish the IRS.
Abolish the IRS. So this is, okay, so number one, if we were to completely eliminate the tax code, what would you guys be in favor of replacing it with? That's my first question for this.
Flat
topic.
tax.
Flat tax. So describe that for us briefly.
I would like a flat tax on income or a flat tax on consumption, not both.
Okay. So, Strauns, what do you say?
So there's the flat tax and the fair tax, and I always get them mixed up. But one is essentially what Adam was talking about.
Flat, yeah. So flat is on income,
and the other one's on consumption, on goods that you buy,
yeah.
except for some basic necessities, right?
Uh-huh.
So I think I'm probably more in favor of the consumption, so that you could essentially not be taxed if you didn't buy things. You could save your money if you wanted to.
Okay.
But either one, I think, would be better than what we currently have.
I totally agree with that statement. But you're saying you would like the fair tax better, the consumption tax better.
I think so, yes.
Okay, Adam, which one would you, if you had to call one, what would you say?
Probably the consumption, because if you're like Strauns was saying, you can actually avoid paying taxes by being more self-sufficient, which would encourage people with less money, poor people, because they're not consuming as much, they're not paying as much in taxes. If you're rich and you're consuming a lot and you're using a lot, you're paying more in taxes. So that seems the most just in regards to, if you want more, go ahead and spend more. It's fine.
Right.
But
They're both better because you don't have to worry about how much money you earn. No tax brackets, right?
Right.
I think we can
taxes don't really work.
We can all agree that that's the best idea, to not incentivize making less money.
Right.
Right. If you're $10,000 short of that next tax bracket, just going to sleep for the month of December. Right. That's kind of where we're at now. I don't think
Which
most
is
people.
what Reagan used to do. That's why he talked about it so vehemently when he was running for a governor in California. It's because he said essentially there came a point towards the end of the year, usually in November, that he would just simply go to his ranch and stop working.
Yep.
Because if he jumped another tax bracket, he would have to make such an immense amount of money to break even that it didn't matter anymore.
Or you have people, which I know people like this, who they make, right over that. And so they do everything they can to write off as much as they can to get down below. And so you have people jumping through these kind of legal loopholes, and people are saying, that's tax evasion, or they're, what do people always blame? Oh, you're storing your money in the Cayman Islands or whatever, right? And it's like, because people don't want to be penalized for making, I got to raise a $5,000, but now I have to pay $15,000 more in taxes.
Right.
That's probably not an accurate figure. I'm just throwing out it as an example.
So that we know what we're talking about here, they don't just want to. It says abolish the IRS in this article, but
they have to replace it with something.
And they are. And the name of the act is the Fair Tax Act. So they are looking for it, and the fair tax is the consumption tax. Okay? Is
it just being called the Fair Tax Act, or is it actually going to be a fair tax? Because the Affordable Care Act sounds very affordable.
No, what they're saying that it is a consumption tax. Now, whether they say, we're going to have a consumption tax and it's going to be regulated specifically by the executive branch, so the president just gets to come into office and pick what it is. That would not be a fair tax at all. But it did say it is a consumption tax.
Right.
So I favor that one above all. But here's my problem. You guys remember the contract with America? I don't think Strauns does. Strauns would have been a wee little boy. Strauns still kind of is a wee little boy.
We were kind of
we were young.
Pretty young.
But yeah, the contract with America was back during the Clinton administration. So this is going back a couple of years, right? Well, part of the contract with America was they literally said, if you elect us, we are all going to go in there and we're going to work for this agenda. Okay? And they listed out several things. I think it was like a list of 10 or 12 things. One of them was term limits. And they actually got term limits proposed. Okay, now I was basically a kid back then, so I didn't even know what they were doing or what the heck was going on.
That's a big deal, though.
If I had, I would have been screaming from the rooftops, you idiots and you liars, because they tried to implement term limits with a congressional act. Well, terms of Congress are in the Constitution, meaning you have to amend the Constitution, not just an act of Congress. Really simple concept. They all knew that, and it was just a farce.
Yeah.
This is a farce.
It's all for show.
We have President Obama.
He's never going to sign
He's
it.
not getting rid of the IRS.
And we don't have a big enough majority to overrule a veto.
Yeah, you need 66 votes. Well, 67 depending on who you ask, because it has to be a 2/3 majority, and you get like 66.6 for the official 2/3 in the Senate.
You wouldn't be able to touch it for another 2 years.
No.
Like
No.
we have a majority. We have enough majority now in 2 years. If there's a conservative, I'm not going to say Republican because there's plenty of Republicans that wouldn't do this.
Right.
But a conservative in the office to do this, because essentially you're looking at a few things. Each party has their pets, right? In regards to whether it's like green companies or oil companies or whatever you want to say, each party has their pets. And those companies have figured out and spent tons of money figuring out how to pay as little taxes as possible. If you switch to a consumption tax, then there's nothing to hide behind.
Right.
And if you switch to a flat tax, nothing to hide behind.
Right.
You can't pay zero in income tax because of deductions if there's no deductions. So you would have to get enough people. Mark Levin said, I think it was Mark Levin said today, you have to get the legislators more afraid of the people than of anybody else. Mm-hmm. He was referencing
absolutely.
John Boehner in particular, saying, have your constituency be Boehner.
Who's sorry, I didn't
have to be more afraid of your constituency than you are him, strong arm you, right? Because you want to maintain your job. But that has to be the way it is to get this done. Mm-hmm. They have to be more afraid of being voted out than, being friends with their buddies.
I want to make it clear, though, when I say it's a farce, okay? Those 58 guys probably think it is the absolute best thing to do. They probably believe in it, and they probably, think, well, it doesn't matter what President Obama does. It matters that I do my part. And hey, I tip my hat to anybody that actually operates under that principle. I have to do my part. After me, I can't help what everybody else does, but I do my part. Okay, so that's really cool. And there's 58 of them, and it's really early on, so that number will probably grow, but it's not going to grow to 2/3 majority. Right. So we're not going to override a veto. There is one chance that President Obama actually looks at this and goes, well, I'm playing the long game here. Okay, yeah, go ahead and do that because he sees something we don't. But I can't figure out what that is.
Here's what I think, because it's not just whether or not it looks good with enough constituency to keep your job or play the long game. Mm-hmm. I think vetoing it is the long game. Mm-hmm. Because how long has it been that the government officials have been using the IRS as a way to strong arm?
Since 1913?
Since it started. I just got done reading a book that had detailed descriptions on all the ways FDR used the IRS to strong arm people, throw them in jail for not voting for him. Mm-hmm. There was so much that's been done since then,
was that New Deal or Raw Deal? The one I suggested?
It was a good book.
It was a great book, wasn't
finished it? Yeah,
fantastic.
It was really good. I don't know. I think that's awesome, and I think you're right. I agree that it's good to be able to look at that list of people and say, okay, those people I can trust.
Right.
But I would also be curious. Well, trust more
on this issue.
These people I can support on this issue.
Right. Yeah. But I would be curious. What if that number does grow to the point and it gains popularity where people are saying, "Oh yeah, I'd support that," and then they get to that point where there's enough people who support it that it would pass. Mm-hmm. Then I think you would teeter on that line of it will pass, it won't pass kind of thing. And it would come down to whether or not they'd keep their jobs, whether or not they'd keep their funding for their next campaign. Because then they'd say, oh, I'm going to vote for it. And they vote for it knowing full well that it won't pass because they've, behind closed doors, already determined it wouldn't pass. Mm-hmm. Because there's all those political games that are played where they can save face, but at the same time, still know it's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll say at least it's bringing the conversation to the forefront. We're talking about it, and even if it's an issue that we've been talking about for the past year and a half, at least it's making it more public and getting your average person who's not engaged in politics. Maybe they hear about this, maybe they're a little bit more aware, and it starts the conversation around something of value, of of substance, like the IRS. What a terrible organization where you're just really, you have all these people employed just to police us and make sure we're following all the rules, checking all the boxes. all the people who are employed by TurboTax and H&R Block and all the, what are they, CPAs, just for the mere fact of like, I don't even know how to do my taxes, so I have to hire somebody else to do them for me because they're that confusing.
Right.
It's like, to me, that is just a problem that is obviously that there's something systemically wrong with what we're doing and how the current approach that we have. And a lot of people are afraid of change, and they just, well, it's always been this way.
Right.
Even though it hasn't, obviously. Things have changed over the years, but they want to just keep it the way it is. Or, oh, that's too radical. That's too crazy. There'll be too many problems. The government won't have enough money. Oh, people will avoid it. They'll buy things overseas. It's like, okay, yes, there will be problems with it. We'll figure it out. We have to do what we can to mitigate. And I do think the government needs money to function. I don't think it needs as much as it's currently getting, but we have to figure out something because right now our tax code, in my opinion, is broken. Right?
It is. And the thing is, nobody even knows how broken it is. Nobody really knows the whole tax code. There's not a person on earth that can talk to you about the tax code and know it like a preacher knows the Bible. Like we've talked about that before. There's nobody. That guy doesn't exist.
Well, the tax code is like 10 times the size of the Bible.
So I know.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing that we're dealing with now with the Affordable Care Act or Obamacare. Is you have employers and HR departments trying to work through all this stuff and getting training and courses and figuring out what they're supposed to do because you're like, I don't know. I thought I had it figured out, but now it's all changed, and now I got to do all these things, and we can't do what we were doing, but we can't do what we want to do, and so now we don't know.
Right.
And the same thing, you go into H&R Block and you talk to the tax person, like, well, your situation's kind of complicated because whose isn't, right?
Right.
And they plug in their computer, and it's like, the system's telling me this, so let's all just trust this computer program that couldn't possibly have a glitch or an error, right? Like, I'm not saying that's happening. I don't think that's ever happened to me, but it certainly could happen.
Yep.
And if you just simplify things, it's a lot easier for people to not go through those loopholes. And so there's far less criticism for the rich because, okay, you want to go buy your $2 billion yacht, go for it. You just got to pay taxes on it.
Right.
And then register it and pay tax on it again.
Oh, every year, yeah.
Well, because a yacht destroys more of the ocean.
Oh, of course. Than his car of the street.
And if you had said yacht, you could maybe sail it? If it doesn't have a sail, do you drive a boat?
I don't know.
You drive a ski boat.
Do you motor a boat?
I mean, if you're on a cruise liner, do they call that sailing or do they call that driving a cruise liner? Shipping?
Cruising?
Shipping people?
Did you just ask me if I motorboat?